have never received more messages about any content I've created.
This is your viral moment.
Katie can give parenting advice, but cannot put her
No.
shoes on my feet.
Guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm doing something that I have not done almost ever, except in like podcast format. I invited my friend to be on here via Zoom, and my friend is Katie, who you
Hello.
love. She and I have known each other since I was in, how old was I? Was I like eighth, sixth grade?
Freshman. Yeah.
Freshman?
So
Oh, freshman.
15, 16. I don't know.
Yeah. Katie, you looked about the same then. I don't think you look any
Oh,
older.
thank you.
Yeah.
Zoom,
Um,
maybe.
how about, okay, I'll let you introduce yourself professionally, but I'll just introduce you like as the person that I like. I look up to Katie so much, have ever since I met her. The dynamic of our lives have changed so much. We've become, women who have families and children and professions and such. But she's somebody you'll love to listen to because she's very personable and funny, and she relates to what is going on in your life, whatever it is, but also is going to come from a place of wisdom and education and experience. And so I basically invited Katie on here because I have a lot of fears and I want to just throw them at her and then let her tell me it's all going to be okay. But I also think that the things I'm going through and thinking about as I raise my three kids is the same stuff you guys are thinking about. It's also the same stuff Katie is thinking about.
Thanks, Jess. Well, that was a wonderful intro. Yeah, so my current role, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So I do therapy for individuals. I meet with teenagers and adults. And then before I did my private practice, I worked in school. So I worked with K through 8 and did therapy for students within the school. And then when I became a parent, I started to see that I was leaning on all of these things that I learned about child development and attachment that helped me so much. Plus, I former life have a background in education. So I was a kindergarten teacher. And then I also helped to start a school and was like a teacher coach. So I helped teachers figure out how to educate kids while also preventing a mutiny in the classroom, which is a big task because like you've got all these kids with all these different needs and you're trying to positively get them towards a goal. So when I became a parent, seeing what I learned in graduate school from like the mental health lens and the child development lens, plus what I knew about like how to get young kids to do what you need them to do without yelling, things like that. I was relying on those things so much, which led me to starting Your Therapist Mom Friend, which is my Instagram account, where I just started sharing like what I knew and what was helpful to me. So I'm using it in the real world. And then with older kids, I am both counseling them in a therapy setting. I've worked with all ages, so I know their side of things. And then I've also walked with parents through those fears, which are so common as we look at kids getting older and how we guide them in the right way. And so I'm very passionate about the whole sequence of kids making it from toddlerhood to adulthood.
Yeah, amazing. And something we share that some of you watching are part of Very Good Mothers Club, so this isn't new to you, but I'm really passionate about the mental health of a mother. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that has to do with my own personal experience of depression, needing to go to a mental hospital outpatient program, having loved ones who were suicidal, having family members who took their own lives, and just understanding that so much of what we go through in life is way beyond just little challenging things. Like it really affects us in a deep way. And you personally have experienced that now with your own story, personal story. I don't know how comfortable you are saying that, but I know
Yeah.
this is a passion of yours as well.
Definitely. Yeah. So in my first year with my first son, who's now 4 years old, we lost my mother to suicide. And we getting to motherhood was a complicated journey for me. It was not easy to get there. And we had to have intervention and all kinds of things. So we were finally celebrating this part of motherhood that was so important to me. And in the same year, I'm kind of grappling with the loss of my own mom in such a traumatic way and figuring out how do I take care of myself so I can show up for my son, and manage this so it doesn't get passed on to him. And so all of that, the motherhood journey and the mental health pieces that go along with that, making sure we're taking care of ourselves. And then how we model that for our kids is so important, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, they're going to grow up thinking that that's what they should do too. And so I am very passionate about, what are we doing to address our own needs so that we can better address our kids' needs, and then all have that strong relationship as our kids age, to send them off again into adulthood feeling prepared and confident, and us being in that same boat.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay, should I just ask you my questions?
Yeah, let's
Okay,
jump
I can
in.
start, but I know, so just so you guys know who are watching, Katie and I did talk about this beforehand, so she already is going to bring some stuff to the equation. But basically, Katie, I'm very afraid that my children, I have an 8-year-old, 4-year-old, and 3-year-old. I'm very afraid that my kids will basically grow up and stop liking me. And it's more than that. It's like, stop liking me. Sure, sure, sure. I know. I know sometimes people don't like their parents for a time. Um,
Versus, mhm.
but it's really like this thing right now where I adore these people. I love them so much. They love me. We have these really fun interactions, and I probably, some of this is based on my own personal story and some pain I've got with my own, anyway, it's YouTube, so
Dot,
I'm
dot,
not going to say everything, but
dot.
some of my viewers already know.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm just afraid that what if my kids get to like middle school, high school, and beyond, and they just no longer want relationship with me? And I guess what I'm wondering, and I've already asked you this privately because I'm so confused, is like, is there anything I can be doing along the way to build connection with them now and as we go that can kind of set us up to be connected later? And I know I can't control everything, but I just wonder like what makes for a good connection between parents and kids, because I've struggled growing up with my own family relationships, and I would really like to be a mom who's still connected to my adult children and like a
Yeah.
part of their lives, and we enjoy each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a massive question, but you've seen so much.
Yeah, no, and I think at the root of that, we can kind of go back to what makes a strong relationship, or what makes a relationship that we want to invest in. And the root of that is like trust and safety. And so when our kids are starting to individualize as they get older, they're becoming their own person, they're getting their own ideas about life, they're interpreting things in their own way. They're taking that foundation that we start in these early years where they are more dependent on us. They look to us as like the sun rising and the moon, like
Mhm.
we're their everything. And so in that foundational period, we can use that influence to really establish trust, establish safety, so that as they become that individual later on, they still can look back to us. It's almost like they start walking on the path with us holding them, and then they continue on the path with us holding their hand, and then finally they get to those teenage years and they're walking in front of us, but they
Mm.
still are looking back. Like they're still kind of going back for that sense of identity, that sense of trust, to say like, okay, am I still on the right path? Am I still on the right path? And to be able to look back and see you standing behind them with trust in who they are now. So you've taken it as like, I'm a trustworthy person to them. I create safety for them. And now as they're going out on their own, I'm communicating that I trust them, that I believe in them as an individual, that I see their potential, and they're continuing to get that assurance from us. And then when they need that help, they're more likely to come back to us and be like, wait, now I feel like I've lost the path, or I'm confused about what to do at this juncture. But
Mm.
when we create those messages of safety between us and our kids, it really establishes that trust, so that when they get to those older junctures, they're more likely to come back to us. And so I would say we do that by, having respectful relationships with our kids when they're young, like treating them with some autonomy. And we've talked about this before, like the difference between purpose and power. Like we have a ton of power as parents. So how do we use that very purposefully, so that we're not taking power from our kids, but empowering them, and using that control that we have over their lives with a lot of intentionality, so that our kids do trust, like, okay, when mom or dad say no to something, I know that it's for my own good, because they say yes when they can. They include me when they can. They honor my personhood. And that felt sense from us at these stages is going to create that foundation. So our kids feel that when they're teenagers and are more independent.
That's beautiful. Okay, now I have a really specific question.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking this is so funny because a lot of our viewers have really young kids, so they're
Mhm.
just gonna this will affect them later. I have an 8-year-old, so she is now getting into this stage of life where the opinions of her peers
Mm.
matter
Yeah.
kind of a lot. Um, so she is in 3rd grade. I went to her school for this Halloween parade, and I noticed this really distinct thing happened. So every class went around and all the kids had costumes on. And 3rd grade and below, every kid had a different costume. They just wore whatever they wanted. So some
Yeah.
kids were matching, but they weren't like matching next to each other as if they planned it. It was just
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, look, a few of us all dressed the same way.
Yeah.
4th grade through 6th grade, the kids walked in like pairs or trios, and their costumes matched each other. It was like
Yeah.
they didn't want to choose their
Wow.
costume unless it was also the thing their friend was wearing. And that
Mhm.
was really eye-opening for me because I hadn't realized that I was kind of in that developmental stage where now this is going to change
Yeah.
for Eloise. And now it's been happening since around Christmas time. She talks a lot about, well, like, I don't know if my friends will like that. Or like she got at Christmas, she got a bunch of clothes that she seemed to like when she was with her family, like from
Yeah.
Christmas to New Year's, she would wear them and she'd happily wear them. She like wore them down the hall like she was in a runway.
No.
And then school time came and she stopped wanting to wear them and she
Mm.
started to want to wear other things, which then once I was taking her to school again, I could kind of see like, oh, she wants to dress like these other people are dressing.
Yeah.
And it was very weird for me. I definitely had some like I was stunned and wanted to push against this. And she ultimately was like, why don't you mail some of those clothes to my younger cousin? She has a younger cousin who's a grade lower. She'll
Mhm.
love those dresses. I'll wear these things that my friends like. And part of me wanted to be like, what a waste. Like, come on,
Yeah.
we got you
Yeah.
the things you wanted. And now look. But then this other part is like, I want to honor her process, like this thing she's inside of. We don't have tons of money to buy her a bunch of new clothes. So some of
Right.
this is gonna have to depend on like,
Yes.
what can she find in the house?
Resources. Mhm.
Yeah, but I just wondered, do you have any guidance for me and the parents kind of in this later elementary school, middle school stage, which is so much them trying to find their way in relation to their peers?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that Halloween picture is such like a perfect picture of what's happening internally, right? Like all of a sudden a kid's awareness is going from like very inward focus of like, I like this, so I'm gonna do this. And like you're your own, you like their awareness of other people's even just growing at that
Yeah.
age. And then all of a sudden that awareness of others becomes very clear in that
Mhm.
transition stage. So that makes total sense that that's happening. And I think for us, especially as women, we
Mhm.
can kind of carry our baggage from friendships in middle school and bad experiences into our parenting,
Mhm.
whether it be like body image stuff or that pressure from other people. And what happens is we start to parent out of our fear of like, oh my gosh, I don't want her to be so focused on this that she loses sight of herself. I don't want her to like, you know, be bullied or whatever it is, but those fears can start to seep in. And then what we tend to do is when a worry is expressed by our kids, let's say like, oh, I don't know if my friends are going to like this, we can feel like our job is to convince our kids not to feel something. So all of a sudden we're saying, no, 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 it looks great, you look beautiful, don't worry about it, don't worry about what other people think. And it's out of this fear of like, I've got to save you from feeling this way, I've got to save you from being prey to what other people think. But instead what our kids need in that moment is just reassurance that that's normal and just validation of the feeling. And so we don't have to like panic with them like, oh my god, what if your friends don't like your outfit? Like we don't have to like
Yeah.
join them in that. That's not helpful either. But we can just say like, oh, you really want your friends to like what you wear, or and you really care about your friends so much, they're really important to you. And
Mm,
sometimes just acknowledging that can kind of calm that part of them down that is worried about that. And
yeah.
maybe that's enough for her to just hear like, okay, mom gets it. And again, that's going to open that door for continued communication. um as she progresses in age and friendships do become more important, she's going to come back to you if she feels like, okay, mom makes room for what I'm feeling and validates that, rather than like trying to convince me not to feel that, because that's not a very safe thing for any of us. Like nobody likes to be talked out of their feelings. And so I think that's the first part, is just acknowledging like, wow, this you're really feeling worried about what others are going to think about this outfit, and then just pausing.
Yeah.
And then sometimes that's enough, and then sometimes it might be just asking questions like, what what about this outfit do you not like? What about this outfit is appealing to you? And just getting to know what her preferences are and what about it is sticking out to her. And I think that can just create some good dialogue. And then it becomes a conversation of like, what are you hearing from your friends about your outfits or things like that? And again, we're not trying to give like a ton of advice at this point, but it's just trying to create a comfortable place for her to vocalize those fears and to kind of get that safety and validation of like, we all think about what other people think. It looks different in third grade than it does, in our 30s, but that presence is still there. So how do we help her navigate those feelings rather than trying to convince her not to have them?
Sure. That's so good. Yeah, I see myself in that, like immediately wanting to talk her out of it, almost
Yeah.
like, out of this thing of like, no, I want to protect your innocence. Like, no, no, no,
Oh,
those voices,
totally.
we don't, no, no, we
Don't think
don't.
about those things.
But the thing is, they're already in her head.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so I gotta calm down.
Mhm.
What about, well, okay, I will say this. As we talked it through a little more, it was interesting because some of the things she was like, well, mom, I'll wear this stuff with you guys and at the skate park with daddy. It's just I don't want to wear them to school. And
Mhm.
so it almost took me like getting down again to like, I'm fine. Everything's
Yeah,
fine. He's fine. I love how you said like you can take your experience. I think I totally did that without realizing it's like
yeah, we all do.
middle school is scary.
No.
Yeah, I'm freaking out. But just like bringing it down to like, okay, help me understand and what is this? And
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's a whole thing. And I recognize she's my daughter, and it'll be interesting to see what my son is like at that stage. And my youngest daughter has a totally different personality from my
Yeah.
oldest. So I'm sure I'll need this call again in a couple of
Yeah.
years. But okay, another question that I have texted you about this, but I would love for people to hear because I think it's a common thing.
Mhm.
Uh, I've noticed that my daughter and her friends, who are awesome, they're so cute and sweet, they dress like older. They would love to dress
Mhm.
older. And I get it. I think for my daughter, she spends a lot of time at the skate park every day. And so the girls that she's looking up to, who are these amazing roller skaters, are not wearing too many clothing.
Yeah.
I, and I have no qualms about
Yeah.
clothes. It's just that Eloise, she's at this like stage where she's still quite innocent. So she's not thinking,
Mhm.
she's not putting on something and looking like a 13, 14-year-old and thinking anything of it. She just thinks she looks like the roller skater girls. So we had
Yeah.
this thing where she was trying to wear an outfit that was just pretty revealing of her body
Mhm.
to, I think it was like, I mean, it's happened now like to school, to anywhere. And there's
Yeah.
just certain places that we feel less comfortable about that. Um,
Mhm.
and it's a weird conversation to have because she does not yet have a concept of like looking sexy or looking desirable, or even the idea that someone could see her and she could almost become like a target for
Yeah.
something. She has no concept. So for me to even begin a conversation, it's almost like I'm having to
Like opening a
introduce,
door. Mhm.
yeah, scary things when they're, I don't know, it's so weird. I just haven't known how to do it. So then Sean was trying to do it. He's a pretty tactful guy. And
Yeah.
also though, he was dad, so he was like, you can't wear that.
Yeah.
Like she's like, why not? He's like,
It's like, I don't know
I
what to say.
don't know. I don't know how to tell you you can't do it. We're pretty open-minded people. We just want to protect her. Um,
Mhm.
and so then she's like very logical and reasoning. So he was saying like basically it has to do with how other people will see you and what they'll think, and we have to keep you safe. And then she was like, well, you tell me not to think about what other people think of what I
Mhm.
wear. And now I have to change because of what you think someone else might think about what I wear, which is a very fair and
Yeah,
logical
you're like, you're right.
conclusion. And yet I didn't feel comfortable with her wearing out what she was wearing at 8 years old. And so, yeah, ultimately what we came down to is like, okay, these little adorable outfits that you love to wear them at home, wear them with us. Like, that's one thing. You cannot wear them to these certain places. It's
Yeah.
okay if you don't understand that. Just, you're gonna have to trust me. But
Mhm.
like, any guidance on that or any thoughts?
Yeah, well, and I think like we can look at those tough conversations in stages. Like I do
Okay.
think that it's okay to have conversations that maybe make us a little bit uncomfortable, like and do it in a like tailored way depending on our kids' ages. Like, I'm already talking to my sons about body autonomy and they're 2 and 4, but we're
Yeah.
talking about it and like these areas of your body are only okay for mommy and daddy to when we're like bathing. That's the
Yeah,
only time anybody else will touch these. And that's all we're saying at this point. And
sure.
like so I think we're looking at this conversation and like, okay, where she is right now, what does this conversation need to look like? And I think it's then the second part is like kind of looking internally and saying like, okay, what are the real fears that I have in this? What of those, like, do you and Sean come together and say like, okay, this is where we stand on this is what we feel comfortable with, this is what we don't. And I think that conversation was great in terms of like, these are clothes we wear at home and these are clothes we wear out. But I think we can also like start to explore with her like, what is it about that outfit that she likes? Because I think
Mhm.
again we can go to that fears place around like, oh my gosh, you can't wear that, you look 14.
Yeah,
But for her, like, there's something about that outfit that she likes. And so then say, just starting with like, tell me what you really like about
that's
this.
so
Is it the way it fits? Is it um what is it? And then we can kind of say like, okay, well, why don't we wear it with, like, pick out a sweater to wear over it, or let's go to the store and find something similar
yeah.
that, like,
Ah,
feels a
I
little
didn't
bit
even
more
think of
comfortable.
that, but that's it actually. It's I think as you're saying it, I'm realizing because she loves roller skating, so she's trying to dress like the roller skaters at the
Mm-hmm.
skate parks that are here. So they are quite revealing in their outfits, but all she likes is the shape of the fit. So like even
Yeah.
if it was like a tank top that covered her whole thing, or like the skirt like didn't show her little booty, she
Mm-hmm.
for her, it's not about what skin is showing. It's about the shape that it's doing on her body. And I hadn't
Yeah.
thought about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, but if you could figure that out, what it is she loves, then maybe we could get an 8-year-old version of the thing
Yes.
she loves.
Yeah. So, and
Oh,
again, that's going to be more empowering to her than just hearing you can't do this and you can't do this because we're saying so. Because then
yeah.
it's like, well, why? And again, she's logical. She wants that why. And so I think getting to know like what is it that's interesting to you and how do we do something with that that feels both comfortable to us as your parents, because our job is to keep you safe, but we also really love your individuality. We love your sense of fashion and we want to honor that. So that's going to be way more empowering than just like the fear-based conversation where we're just like, oh my God, I have to keep you safe.
Ah, so good. Okay, great. Well, I have to leave soon to go pick up
Yes.
Will for
Yeah.
Eloise. Eloise, actually. Do you have anything you want to leave us with? I could talk to you forever, and maybe I should. Maybe what we could do, actually, for people watching this,
Yeah.
feel free to leave comments and questions because it would be fun to have Katie hear more. But also, Katie's part of Very Good Mothers Club, so if you ever want
Mhm.
to get on there and hear her speak, or book directly, because you do one-on-one bookings as
Yeah, I
well.
do coaching calls, so I can either do a series of calls where we talk, like, tackle a bigger problem that's going on and address it from multiple angles, or we can do like a one and done, like, hey, I just need to talk through this scenario. So I
Awesome.
do those all the time. Yeah. But
Okay,
also I
cool.
think Very Good Mothers Club is such a good resource because I get super excited about people's questions in there. And then I'm like, there was just a question the other day where it's like, oh, I have like 10 things that will help
Oh,
this. And so, yeah, share your questions and join that community because we're always sharing
yeah,
ideas on
yeah,
there for all the
yeah.
different aspects
Awesome.
of
And it's just cool to not feel alone with the
it.
question.
Yeah.
Like it's cool to
Mhm.
post a question. It might be directly to you, but then to get a bunch of people chiming in, like, I feel that too, or
Yes.
this is hard for me, or here's what we've tried. That's
Hmm.
good. Yeah, great. Is there anything you want to leave us with? I know you have so many thoughts on all of this.
Yeah.
Amy.
Well, I just think the biggest thing I would encourage everybody is it can seem so daunting to look at this teenager up ahead of you and be like, oh my God, what am I going to do when they're angsty and all of those things. But I think it's really important to remember that kid is still the kid that's in front of you right now who loves you and wants tenderness. And that bigger kid just wants tenderness and acceptance too. They just show it almost kind of a repeat of toddler fits, but with more attitude and like better zingers towards us. So I think remembering that like you're creating that foundation right now, like it's almost like roots for the tree. You're getting those roots planted for your kid and giving them deep, stable roots where they feel super secure to grow and to create the rest of the tree that can flourish and feel nurtured and all of those things based on what you're doing right now. So it's all connected, and that strong relationship you have with your kid is just setting a great foundation for a good relationship with your teenager.
I love that.
Yeah.
I also was thinking that maybe some of the fear, like personally, that I experience has to do with some aches and pains that came in my teenage years. And I
Yeah.
wonder too if like as parents, having kids kind of invites us back into some painful things that we sort of ignore and move on from. But maybe it's a great invitation to ourselves to take care of ourselves and like figure out how to get some healing and restoration in areas we felt broken so that we can parent beyond that stage and not feel stuck there.
Yeah.
Like our teenager is yelling at us, and sure, we look like this grown up in this grown up body,
But
but
now we're
actually, yeah,
16.
we still feel
Yeah.
like a kid inside of this body. And
So well said.
yeah, so just even to access help and support and therapy for the
Yeah.
sake of maturing alongside these children is really important.
Yeah. So well said. I totally agree with that. I think that's where therapy can be so helpful for parents is
Yeah,
all of our stuff gets brought up when we now have this person
so
mirroring back
much.
to us our experiences having been children, and also just like yeah all of our internal wounds. So it's a great opportunity to engage in therapy.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
well, you're the best. Thank you so much for doing
Likewise,
this. I
Jess.
really
Thanks for
appreciate
having me. So fun.
I'm
I'll talk
going